Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's session. Welcome to Performance, the first virtual summit organized by Launchmetrics to discuss the future of brand performance in fashion, luxury, and beauty industries. Thank you for joining this session, which will focus on digital collections. And speaking on the topic, we have a really excellent guest list for you. Both are recognized experts in their field, along with our very own Chief Customer Officer, Tatiana Ferreira, who will be moderating. The session will be 30 minutes long, followed by a 15-minute Q&A with questions that we've collected from social media networks. And of course, don't hesitate to participate on the chat and real-time polls and share your experience through the hashtag Performance2020 on social medias. And with that, I'm gonna join the panelists and Tatiana on stage, and she'll make the introductions and we'll pass it off. So Tatiana, if you can join me.
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine, and everyone. So thanks again to Catherine and everyone for joining today. While there's no doubt that COVID has been a trying time for everyone, when we specifically look through a brand's lens, the challenge of launching a collection during this time may have seemed at first nearly impossible or at a minimum definitely daunting. And many brands found themselves asking whether it was even worth launching a collection during this time. But what the pandemic definitely did was present the brands an opportunity to really think about how they reach their consumers, how they engage with their consumers, and at the end of the day, ultimately, how they create experiences and translate their brand to a digital environment in a successful way. So I'm joined today by another Tatiana Dupont, who is head of luxury at LinkedIn. And we should be very soon, yes, joined by Gary Pinago, social media and e-reputation director at Dior. So thank you both for joining us. I'm super excited to dig into this topic, and let's kick it off. I'm going to start off by asking you both, how has COVID impacted your 2020 strategies? You know, what changes have you implemented to combat this adversity?
Well, I guess I'll start. Thanks, Tatiana, and thanks, Launchmetrics, for having us today. It's a pleasure with Gary to be here. Clearly, I mean, obviously, it was not business as usual, and we know that the luxury industry was one of the first to be impacted, and that's precisely because of the impact on Chinese consumers. My role at LinkedIn, it's really like to help luxury brands globally, understand and achieve their marketing objectives at LinkedIn. And more than that, it's really like, how do we guide them onto like, how do you use LinkedIn as a platform to reach your audience? So as soon as the COVID started, our priority for the luxury team and my priority was really to make sure we'd help brands maneuver in this very delicate situation. And the thing is, LinkedIn, it's ranked as the most trusted social platform on a yearly basis. It's the fourth year in a row that we've been ranked as the most trusted. So it's super great, but of course it brings a halo of communication for these brands. And so we really wanted to make sure, they were making the most of this strong engagement that we were getting and also the trust that we were getting. So we had a lot of tips as to, obviously sharing the impact that you have on your workers and on the society, but also like, what are you doing to be like, to use platforms as a window to the outside world. And we've seen brands do like really creative things like Lueve, organizing Lueve in Casa, which were conversations with, I don't know, like designers or artists all over the world. And I guess giving a bit of a lighter touch to what was going on at the time. And we saw a very strong engagement on LinkedIn also because it was a place where people were coming to get some news. So that was our priority back then.
And on our side, I think the strategy of Dior on the digital was already in place and pretty solid already. So I think we didn't have to reinvent ourselves. We just had to reinforce what we were already building the past few years. I think what was tricky was to like rethink entirely like planning were put in place because we work like 2 to 3 months in advance. So when we were first hit by COVID in Europe, and when it became like a world issue, like we had to stop all communication. Also, I think it was very scary for everyone because we didn't know where we were about to go and when it would like go through the crisis, when it will end, and etc. So I think it was very challenging, but having a sort of like already great foundation into digital communication, presence on social media, and everything really help us to quickly and promptly like readjust all our strategy. We had a lot of like listening on what was people like fears and consideration. Also, like having more than 80% of our boutiques closed for like a couple of months, we had to refocus on more like our core values, taking out the more like product communication, and of course we were helped a lot by people at platform, for instance, by Tatiana and LinkedIn, because people were already also supporting us a lot on what the direction to take, because at the time we didn't really know where to go, what to do, what to say, etc. I think right now for the second wave that we are eating right now in Europe, it's a bit less scary, even if we are very careful. But I think we are more like prepared in a way, which is not a good thing. But still, but yeah, I think it was really a lot about like reinforcing what we have built, being very like happy about the foundation we had, and rethinking the way we were like communicating with the people who are following us on social media.
Yeah, definitely. I think those first few months, March, April, May, people were in that panic mode, right? What to do? How do I adapt? Because even I think brands and companies who had that foundation, there was definitely a level of adaptation that they had to do, because at the end of the day, digital became the forefront of everything they did, and definitely of collection launches. So with that, Tatiana, what are some of the key elements that brands need to consider in order to make that successful, even looking ahead?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that any crisis, as we know, brings transformation. And I mean, we've been talking about the digital transformation of fashion brands and luxury brands for quite a few years now, and trying to understand what was the best thing to do, etc. So I think digital was already at the forefront of launching collections. And I personally think that, I mean, there's never going to be anything replacing shows to launch a collection, because obviously a collection, it's much more than just the clothes, but it's also the inspiration, it's also the values that stand behind, it's the designer, it's the music, it's the catwalk, it's everything. So the question is maybe like, how are they gonna be able to launch these collections and mix and have harmony between what's online and offline? Clearly, using platform and live, I think is a really good tool, and I think it also contributes to being more inclusive for luxury brands, because it's going to widen the audience by default, because a lot of more people are going to have access. So to answer your questions, like what are the key elements, I'd say, like, to add to what's already being done, I think there are three things. The first one would be authenticity, and I'm sure it's very clear for everybody, but we really think that having like a brand image that, very like the same across all platforms, as well as when you launch a collection, it's super important. But it's also like when you launch it, like share the inspiration, what's behind it. We know, at least on LinkedIn, that people are on a mission mindset. We say like they want to understand brands. They connect on LinkedIn, obviously to network, to look for jobs, but also to understand brands. And they always want to go like one step further. So have this like authenticity in the message that you say. The second one would be obviously innovation and use of technology and everything that can be done. I mean, there's so many things that you can do now, from live to events or like private viewing rooms online. So clearly, and I've been working with luxury brands for quite a while now, and I feel like they're very much pioneers on all these techniques, and they always want to test first and be the first. So it's very good. And the third one, I'd say it's kind of the big word that I know scare a lot of people. It's data. But what I mean with data, it's really like understand your audience, like use data to understand who you're talking to. Are you talking to like your current customers? Are you talking to the next generation of customers? What do they want? Personalized messaging, etc.
Yep, that totally makes sense. And I think something that a lot of brands have on their mind is this idea of momentum. After a launch, when you have an in-person event, there's a momentum, there's a buzz that's created in person, and maintaining that, I think, is a long tail that happens after, right? So when your launch is digital, how can you, in both of your opinions, make sure that momentum does continue post-event or post-launch? Maybe Gary, we can start with you this time.
Yeah, well, I think first I'm totally in line with what Tanya said about authenticity, innovation, and data. I think it's really also the key for us on driving like in communication online. But I think for us, if we look back at an entire like life cycle of a collection, what we're trying to build is to have like a message which will last from the fashion show, which is more like the upper funnel awareness and a very like branding phase. For instance, talking about the inspiration, Maria Grazia or Kim Jones messages, where they're coming from to build this collection. Also, why we decided to do the show here or there. So it's really about like introducing all these like key elements of the collection. If I look, for instance, at the cruise show we had in Lecce in July, so it was about like the Puglia, and it was a very important part of Maria Grazia's roots because her father was from there. She really wanted to have a show there. She used like local craftsmanship. She really like focused on giving work and helping for this like little like artisan to survive from the crisis. And she also wanted to put the spotlight with what Dior has to offer in terms of media opportunities to this region, which is very dear to her heart. And after also, we really wanted to build something that will continue when the collection will hit the store. So a few weeks ago, right before confinement in France, we released a Euro movie that we released on all social platforms, including LinkedIn, for instance. And it was really about like continuing this messaging, pushing to the core values. And of course, from up funnel to bottom funnel will be more precise into going deeper into like product, but for the moment it's still about continuing the inspiration, reinforcing the message, reinforcing like the DNA of the collection itself and where it's coming from, putting back a link to the show that we had in July, and in the next weeks, mostly when the boutiques will open in Europe, it will be about what are the core projects that we have created and Margareta has created, and why, and how this product reflect to this the inspiration she had and the craftsmanship she used. So it's really about like thinking this overall to not like little like one-shot communication push, but like a global picture that we're starting from the fashion show until like the end of the collection life in boutique, for instance.
And Tatiana, do you have anything to add on that about maintaining momentum?
Yes, I mean, I think it's super interesting, and because Gary's vision, it's obviously from the brand standpoint, which is like going from the show to like the boutique and the objective, which is obviously the success of the collection and driving sales at really like bottom of the funnel. I'd say like from a platform standpoint, my answer would be like, make sure you have a relevant content strategy and make sure you open up, because today, I mean, luxury buyers, they buy more than just clothes. They buy what's behind and what the values are, etc. And I think if you're able to tell a full story, it makes more sense, and it brings value to the purpose of the brand as well. And again, I would say it again, but I think it's also important to make sure you're talking to the right audience to maintain that momentum. And maybe you're going to address the younger generation in a different way, because maybe they're not going to go in store, maybe they will. So you have to really think of who you're talking to.
You know, we've heard you both using the words authenticity and consistency, right? And it's whether that's consistency from one experience to another, one platform to another, and even from one voice to another. And if we think about the influencer voice or the celebrity voice, I'm sure Dior has a never-ending roster of influencers and celebrities. How do you still leverage these voices as part of your online strategy? Is it the same as before, or has it now changed?
I think what we did when we were first hit by COVID was to like have a one-on-one discussion with each of the friend of the house, as we like to call them. So basically it was about understanding, because everybody was a bit in fear. So it was about understanding where they were staying, if they were safe. It was really about like a human conversation. And after we kind of like accompany them into what they were trying to do. I think everybody was reflecting on their own life and the way we're living on each of us. So it was really about understanding what they wanted to do in the future. I think some of them were like start to figure out that maybe it was too much traveling, too much like consumption, and also they wanted to share like a different message. And some of them were more into like continuing into the system, and we were really about like listening to everyone and being a partner into whatever the direction they wanted to take. So basically for us, it was like having this conversation with them, see a bit how the world were going. And I think it was also after it was COVID, but after it was like Black Lives Matter. And right now we were facing a boycott in the Middle East. I mean, as the French, all the French companies. So it's really about understanding what they live locally and in their life. And I think right now we find a good balance with each of them. On the one who are more into like taking a step back from the fashion system, and so we still work with them on different aspects. For instance, also the portfolio of Dior products is super large. We have Dior Maison, we have Baby Dior, we have like makeup, skincare, etc. So I think we have a lot of different opportunities for different directions. So we didn't really force anyone. We're more into like, okay, what are you trying to do, and how we can still remain like a partner or a friend, and how we can help you to like voice out a different message if you want to voice a different message. How we can still like get you to a show in the capacity of course like health and security, but like it was really about having this custom conversation with each of them. But I think overall the system is remaining in place mostly, and half will like change a bit what they are posting and the message they want to give, and the other half will like continue to come to show. But I think on both sides we have managed to be with them and to be present and to maintain this relationship with all of them.
Yeah, having almost a human first mentality and approach, I think, has been so important always, but especially during this time when it's so much more sensitive.
Yeah.
And Dior is consistently top ranked when it comes to overall media impact value, as well as own media during fashion weeks. Without giving away your secret, what are the main things that you consider prior to kickoff? Like when you're kicking off your launch plans for an upcoming collection, are you looking at data first? Do you go by gut feeling? Is it a bit of both? What are those starting points in that meeting room with your team when you're discussing the next big launch?
Well, I think, as you said, it's a bit of both, but I think first we receive a sort of like, it's not a brief, I don't like the word brief, but we receive like, we're educated about the collection from each designer. So basically they will share with us like the story of the collection, the inspiration, like the message they want to give. Also, I'm very lucky to be working with artistic directors who are very into like digital. They know the platform, they use the platform. If we look at Mara Grazia, Kim Jones, Victor de Castellan, they all have like a presence on social media. So for instance, they are sometimes very clear and specific on what they are trying to, they want to achieve. So either in terms of content, messaging, platforms they want to use, the way they want to use each platform. So I think we receive a sort of like a roadmap from them, or like a sort of like brief. It's more like a conversation with them. And after, like, we sit down, and after it's exactly as you said, finding the right balance between, of course, data, as Tatiana was saying, data for us, it's important. And when you cannot do digital and use the data. And I think it's about protecting the message that they're trying to give and broadcasting the message the best way possible, and finding the right platform to broadcast this message. And it's really balancing like what we're trying to achieve in terms of like either messaging or a more commercial approach according to which opportunities we have to do. And yeah, balancing each of these different aspects all together, let's say. But I think for us, being a luxury brand, creativity will always lead, and we really value like the creative aspect as first and foremost in our strategy overall. And we decide on platforms, influencers, paid strategy. Everything is always driven by the creativity, either in terms of like innovation, as I was saying, platform we're using, talent we are working with. For instance, if we look at influencer only, we worked with Chiara Ferragni for the cruise show in Lecce. We had no guest show, so it was totally empty. But we only had like Chiara being the friend of the house and not attending the show because he was not sitting as usual. But we asked Chiara to join because we really wanted to highlight the region, as I was saying before, like the Puglia, because it's a region with suffering a lot. So we asked Chiara to come and to really help us to support the region, and we on both sides like use all our channels to highlight like this storytelling and to really focus on this message we wanted to give outside of just the collection itself. And I think he was really receiving the brief from Maria Grazia and understanding what we were trying to achieve. And here specifically, we wanted really to focus on local craftsmanship, focus on the region, focus on Italy itself, being the roots of Maria Grazia and Puglia. And Chiara was the perfect partner for this.
Yep, so tying back pretty much every decision to that overall inspiration, the overall creative message to again have that consistency that we keep coming back to. And are there any examples of other campaigns, whether it be at Dior or maybe Tatiana, that you've seen elsewhere where owned media channels were leveraged really successfully?
Yeah, of course. I mean, thank God there's a lot also on LinkedIn, and I think it's important to be transparent. I mean, when I joined LinkedIn now 5 years ago, it was not the go-to platform for fashion brands or luxury brands. I think it was still very much considered as a HR platform, and it was unclear what we could bring into like, you know, communication for like more branding and consideration, that kind of thing. What we see as being very successful, it's strategies that rely on having the right content sent to the right person, and of course being innovative in testing new formats. What we recommend on LinkedIn, it's really like to have different types of audience. And for example, the way we work with Dior is like we work together on campaigns that are when they're launching a new collection, or when there's like a hero movie for the new collection. But we also work with them and to like, you know, attract new talents, or like showcase the conversation series around women empowerment that are taking place on LinkedIn with Dior right now. So it's really like opening up through like a 360 approach to your brand and not sticking to like one aspect. And so the best strategies that we see are like the 360 approach, and they will share, you know, product branding, and also like the, you know, whatever, like the vision of the CEO, financial results. So a mix of everything.
And LinkedIn has launched quite a few new features this year, most notably LinkedIn Live. Have you seen this impacting brand performance?
Yes, we're very happy that we have such a strong product team at LinkedIn, and they actually launched Live in 2019. And it's been a turning point, I think, for fashion on LinkedIn, because right now, I mean, just the latest fashion week, there are brands such as Dior, obviously, but also Chanel or Louis Vuitton, Armani, or smaller brands like Ami that were live on LinkedIn. And the results that we have are very strong in terms of viewership, but also the engagement is super strong. And that's something that's very, I mean, I don't know if it's unique to LinkedIn, but it's something that we see, is that people on LinkedIn, when there's engagement, it's positive or neutral. It's very rarely negative. People have like smart conversation and dialogues and opinions, and it's the same for the show. So if you look at the comments, it's written in a very smart way. And the results I can share, for example, is also the Louis Vuitton. They've done 4 of their last shows. I mean, their 4 last shows, sorry, live on LinkedIn, and they have a whole strategy around it on, you know, how do you like create a rendezvous with a teaser video, etc. So they had this amazing like 3-minute video with, you know, which had like 50% completion rate, and then they had a video after also highlighting the best moments. And in 3 days, they reached like 1 million unique luxury buyers on LinkedIn. So it's a very good asset for us, and I think and for fashion brands, because it's probably complementary to the other platforms as well.
I'm sure it ties back a lot to the professionalized audience that LinkedIn has been able to build at the end of the day.
Sure.
And Dior was one of the first brands, I believe, to live stream on LinkedIn. So Gary, could you maybe share your thought process behind this? And have you personally seen this impact Dior's brand performance?
Yeah, but I'll complete what Tatiana said. But I think, let's say first, we're always happy to try like new platforms or like new features in the platform we are working with. I think Dior being supposedly super creative and innovative, like we were very happy when Tatiana reached out to us to mention that she was opening like live stream on the platform. And to say what Tatiana said, but I've seen exactly what she said, and basically I think the retention is super good. I think the quality of the audience is one of the best as we see in the market. I think if we compare ratio like with the number of followers and engagement of viewership, LinkedIn have been showing extremely strong results, so we're extremely happy about it. And since we've tried it, we have been like putting the show live on LinkedIn, and we are actually reinforcing our presence because, as Tatiana said and you say as well, like there is a very qualitative audience on LinkedIn, young executive, also people like driven by career, interested in fashion, for instance. And of course, this will resonate with what they're trying to find on LinkedIn. So it has been very great for us.
And having hosted these lives together, and even in a more broad sense, what would you say you've learned from these experiences? Any best practices you can maybe share with the audience?
Yeah, I think, but Tatiana mentioned it briefly, but I think it's important to announce and tease in advance. I think it's very key because mostly people on LinkedIn, they are like it's career oriented, so maybe they have less time to scroll as you can do on the platform, etc. So I think the clearer you are from the beginning, and the earlier you are on saying, where this is the rendezvous, the timing, at which time you will be able to find the show, and etc. It's very clear. I think content is always key, but I think I would like really focus on like making very clear like about when the show will happen. Of course, if you amplify a bit the announcement specifically, like I think you will also like make sure you reach the right audience and for people who will connect at the right time. So I think it's about this like scheduling great content and a bit of media amplification to make sure that you have reached the right persons.
Yeah, it's almost like building momentum. We talked about it before, the long tail after, but brands can't forget that they have to do it ahead of time too. The momentum has to come before and after. And looking ahead to the future, do you believe there is a future in which luxury brands will be 100% digital, or will that in-person launch, that in-person experience always be fundamental?
Should I go first?
Sure.
I think at Dior, the strategy is really to maintain a strong physical presence. We really believe in physical presence. For instance, I think luxury product, for instance, it's harder to sell online, even if we're doing it. I think also it's really about the dream that you're building, which will always go with like, for instance, a fashion show with like a set and people attending when possible, or like an atmosphere, for instance. I'm referring a lot to this show in Lecce because it was such a moment for Dior overall in our history. But we had like musicians, we had dancers, we had like an amazing set. It was really a moment like Maraza was like super emotional about it. I think the dream that Dior is giving is so important to have like this physical moment, to be able to share and to show this dream and to broadcast this dream. And for instance, for us, we mostly believe that we need to have a physical aspect and a physical like release of a collection, which go along with like all what I say, set, etc. But we're just aiming to amplify this strongly on digital. And for instance, if we look at the show in September, we almost reached like 100 million views on the video of the show overall in all the platforms we're using, and we are so surprised that we had like such a reach. But of course, it's because people are still into like discovering like a moment which will happen in real life. And I think I will say the same comment about the importance of having still like a retail presence. I think it's very key for a client to connect. Of course, to be able to buy at any time, it's extremely key. Nowadays with the COVID, but also with the next generation. For instance, the Gen Z, will they go to the boutique? We're not sure yet, but I think it's still important to have a contact with the product, especially where you have a unique savoir-faire, qualities that are not able to find anywhere else. It's important to be able to touch, to feel, to get the story, and I think this is very key for Dior overall.
Yeah, I don't know what I can add to that. I think it's the $1 million question in the industry these days. Like, how do you mix this, and how do you bring harmony in like offline and online. I mean, for me, human connection will remain key. I don't see how this would be only online. I think it's interesting, as Gary says, like this younger generation, will they go to stores? Will they really be able to not go and not feel the product and feel the experience? I mean, I don't have the answer, but my answer would be like a mix of both is the key.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see as well, like the short-term changes versus the long-term, because short-term, we were talking about human first, and I think honestly, everybody just misses being in person, right? Being able to talk to each other. So I almost, in talking to some of our customers, they're definitely sharing that sentiment, right? I can't wait to go back to the shows and have that experience. So it'll be interesting to see, that first season when we can all be back in person together, how will then it change after that, right? Will the strategy and the digital and in-person really become more and more intertwined? Because for some brands who maybe weren't so digitally advanced or digitally embracing, they had to do it this time, right? So now it'll be more of an intertwined strategy going forward. And obviously, we unfortunately are going into some new lockdowns around the world. What do you believe is going to be important for brands to retain that engagement over these next few months? Maybe Gary, if you want to start off.
I think I will quote Tatiana, but I think it's really about like the authenticity. It's super key. I think it's about finding a balance between like a core value message and maybe like a more like collection message remaining, because we still have a capacity to buy online. But I think what is very key for us going through like all these crises this year in 2020, it was also about understanding and trying to listen to what people have to say. I think it's really about I think luxury brand in the past were really like top down about like giving the message and not really like listening to what people were like replying to those message. But I think right now it's really about first we listen, first we try to understand the context and the situation of people, and then we adjust and we react accordingly. For instance, if I take the example of like Black Lives Matter, we show support. If we look at the boycott we had in the Middle East, we stay silent because I think it was an issue we were like put in, but we were like had a strong respect into everyone's feelings, so we were trying to stay silent because we didn't have anything to say. For the COVID, I think at first we stay quiet because we were like very concerned about the health of people through the world and also their employees, etc. And now we feel a bit more confident to continue to communicate a bit, but maybe to be more a partner into this crisis by offering like entertainment, sharing stories about the brand that are more into like, like what you earn from us, like learning something, like getting a story, getting an entertainment, a game, a little a podcast. We have a lot of like different direction to take, but it's really about understanding in that situation what are the people aiming to receive from us, and trying to also understand each and everyone's concern and to respect that in that sense.
Yep. And in this audience that we have today, I'm sure we have, people from all over the spectrum, other big brands, but also some emerging brands. And for those people, I'm sure they're thinking, okay, well, we don't have the same big budgets. We're working with a lot smaller. Gary, do you have any advice for those people who, in building like their own strategies, their influencer campaigns, who maybe don't have access to as big of a budget? Any advice to share with them as maybe starting points?
Yeah, but I think even if people will won't believe me, but on the influencer side, we don't pay people. So it's really about a relationship we're building, and it's really about having a custom relationship. And honestly, the best advice I will give is, I got it from the influencers themselves, but I think people really dislike to be used in the sense of like, or you contact them one day because you need something from them, and after you don't talk to them for like 6 months, and you come back when you have something to push. And I mean, they're not like, they will understand that you're really trying to reach them when you need them. And I think it's really about finding a win-win situation and finding a right balance, because even if a brand we don't have all the capacity to pay, but we have capacity to offer different things. For instance, us, we use some talent to be the face of like a project. So we produce video, we only post it on our side, and they feel like special because they feel like they become ambassador of the brand, or we get them an access to the show, which is extremely limited. Or of course, when we can, we do gift, and we will go to people who support us the most. So it's really about also understanding what they would need from a brand like Dior, or what they will need from any type of brand, and finding a win-win situation when we really also understand what they will expect from us, and not only using them, let's say. And I think on the on side, authenticity is super key. Sharing your core values, telling your story. I think telling your story is not only about the product itself, but also about like the people behind the product. So for instance, for us, we communicate a lot about our artistic directors because it's an amazing source of storytelling for us, because they have so many things to share, and their inspiration, and even their own background, etc. And it's also about highlighting people working at the company, like the petite main, talking about savoir-faire. Who is the person who is like have this very specific skill that you will be able to find anywhere else, and only available at Dior. So it's really about tell the story about them and about us overall, what makes us Dior. I think it's important to highlight the value of the brand, which will go beyond just the product. And I think for the Gen Z, they will be more and more concerned about this. And it's also about like the way we create those collections, like the sustainability behind it, the footprint we're gonna let to the world, like the carbon footprint. Also like the people, like the inclusion, diversity of people, like working to create this collection. I think all this is super important to complete with just like highlighting your product, I would say.
Yeah, it's like brand values, and then human connection.
Exactly.
Whether it's paid or not paid campaigns, if we're speaking specifically to influencers, we definitely have heard it on our side too, right? An influencer who's hears from a brand that no one wants to feel like a product or a transaction. You want to make sure you have that relationship and that connection. On the LinkedIn side of things, Tatiana, how do you see the future of LinkedIn? Like, we've seen a drastic shift. We talked about it a little bit earlier, from the early days of it being perceived as a job posting board, a place to share your CV or your resume, to now having a real place in social media. So how do you foresee LinkedIn's positioning changing, what their place will be in the future, and how they'll continue to differentiate themselves from the other platforms?
Yes, it's a great question, and you're right. I mean, it did start as a job board, and there's been a major evolution since we were created. And I think what's interesting is one of the main reasons why LinkedIn is what it is today. It's really thanks to our editorial team. We have more than 100 journalists working at LinkedIn. We have our own editor-in-chief, Dan Ross, who's based in New York. And they create content on the platform, but they mostly produce their own content, doing interviews, live podcasts, newsletters, and everything. And that contributes to the premium environment that LinkedIn is bringing. So, and I think that's why also we have such interesting audience on LinkedIn, because they find interesting content. That being said, what's interesting is that the vision of LinkedIn has never changed. It's always been, since it was created, to like create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And we obviously know that we have a very strong role to play these days. And it's part of the larger vision of our CEO and the whole company, which is called the economic graph. And I'm not going to tell you everything about it now because it would be quite long, but it's actually pretty fascinating. It's about like, how do we contribute to mapping the global economy with all the data that we have, and how can we contribute to global policies worldwide. So there is a lot that we can do, and I think LinkedIn is a company that will bring a lot to the ecosystem. And on the marketing side, I mean, what's the future for us in being a top platform for brands to like achieve marketing objective? I think we are very proud to be a platform where there are smart conversations happening. There's opinions. There's like a brand safe environment, and we are very proud that there's now more than 700 million members worldwide. And these people, they're like the leaders of tomorrow. They're like the CEOs of today. They're the younger generation that are getting educated. But what's super interesting, and I think what's very unique to LinkedIn, it's the mindset they are when they go on LinkedIn and how they feel after they leave LinkedIn. And I think it's kind of fascinating. But when people leave LinkedIn, they feel like very much accomplished and purposeful because they've read all kinds of like stories and what's possible, etc. And I think for a brand to be able to catch someone when he's in that mindset to, he has time, he's investing time, and he feels good, I think that definitely will impact brand performance and sales.
Perfect. So we have just a couple of minutes left, so I want to take some questions from the audience. We have a question about Twitch. So this, at least for me, I'll be very honest, it was a newer platform that I learned about during the early days of the pandemic. And we've seen some brands really embrace Twitch. Do you have an opinion about the platform, if its potential for luxury fashion brands, or how it may shape the way that luxury brands approach their digital strategy? Will they embrace Twitch, or?
I'm going to let you go, Gary, on Twitch.
Yeah, so we met them. It's funny because I just met them like a couple of weeks ago. I think nowadays there is like to be super frank with you, like my opinion is not made and set about Twitch. Honestly, we had a first very introductional like meeting with them. I think it's a great opportunity, but I think overall we have like now like so many like platforms available, and I think it's finding the right balance and where to find your audience. I have not in mind all the data about Twitch, so I'm not sure if we will put our efforts in the next months on this platform. But of course, we're studying this. We're studying like Thriller. Like we have other opportunities to in mind. But I think right now, I must say, if to be transparent with you, like what our core like development this year will be maybe more like Gen Z platform, I would say, because we are like everyone is starting to tap to these future customers, because first they are the future of luxury, and in 5 years they will be like going to stores and having 40% of the luxury clients, and also they already have a strong influential power on their parents, which is important, I think, for luxury brands. And also we still have a platform where we want to be more mature. For instance, LinkedIn have been a top partner for us this year, and a focus. I'm working closely with Tatiana on a regular basis to improve our presence, to be more active on the branding side, to do like more campaigns. We have the live that are becoming like a regular operation. So I think for now it will be these two elements, and of course Twitch is on our radar, but I'm not sure if I can really give a right answer right now, because I don't have a clear visibility on what Twitch is.
Yeah, I think when social media really took off as part of a brand's toolkit for marketing and launches, at first it was very reactive, where I think a lot of brands felt they needed to be everywhere. And now, because it's not so new, even though there are new platforms, it's much more strategic in approach. Like you guys have been saying, right? Where is my audience? Where is my consumer? Which platform resonates the most with them for me to have that authentic connection at the end of the day? And I think that's something we'll just continue to see, whether it's Twitch or another emerging platform. We all know they're not going anywhere. So it's just a matter of the new ones that come in and adapting to the audience based off of that. Great. Well, we are out of time. I feel like it flew by. But thank you both so much for your time, for your insights. I'm sure the audience found it super insightful. I know I did. So thank you again for joining us, to you both and to the audience.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening or day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.